Hey everybody, welcome back to the ZBP Project. My name is Lester. If you are here for the first time, welcome for the first time. If you are a returning listener, I appreciate you guys. And girls, if you are listening out there, for tuning in. And so today I want to talk, it's a solo cast today, which I will be doing a little bit more of. Today I will be talking a little bit more about training, about more fitness stuff. I am a little bit more on my fitness kick than I have been in the last little while. I'm a little rejuvenated, and I'm kind of like amped up to really kind of get things going again, right? Like, for a long time, for the last few years, and it's kind of embarrassing to say because for the last 11, 12 years now, I've been a trainer, and I've been ringing gyms for the last while. Although I've let my health kind of escape me in a way, right? So I've totally used my kids as an excuse to be like, oh yeah, just to eat their like leftover macaroni and cheese or like their leftover chicken nuggets and things like that, and just staying up late and really doing things I should not be doing if I'm putting my health like first, or maybe not first, but really high up in priority. I have not been doing those things, and then so as a result of doing that, like I've just slowly like put on pounds, right? So a couple lbs around the waist has kind of been weighing me down, and so I'm like, man, taking ownership now, and kind of really getting back into shape of things, and so I'm enjoying training and working out again, and so I want to talk a little bit more about like training in my 20s versus my 30s. Now that I am 35, going on 36 in October, I've been kind of seriously working out or kind of in gym since 2007, when I was like 21, 22 years old. About 21 when I really kind of started to really get it going. But before that, I was in the gym since 18. But for the first like 3 years, I got like no results. So I kind of don't really count that, right? So I'll be talking about a little bit more of like how I started and like where things went, and then how things are going now that I'm like kind of working out from home. I'm 35. I have a different lifestyle than I did have when I was in my early to mid 20s. So when I started working out, and also a shout out to 27 Degrees Apparel, by the way, for some of the best like lifestyle kind of like fitness shirts. I enjoy them. I like them. I don't really wear a ton of stuff. I'm like, I like having less decisions to make, and so I literally wear about 2 to 3 different t-shirts all the time. Alright, so I am like, I'm Steve Jobs. I wear like the black turtleneck and jeans, right? So I'm like that. I don't like to make a ton of decisions, especially when it comes to my food and the things I wear. So I wear like the same shoes for the most part, and I wear the same clothes, right? I'll either wear some form of I'll wear shorts unless I have to wear pants, right? And then I will wear one of like my two 27 degree apparel shirts, and that's what I wear, right? And so shout outs to 27 Degrees Apparel. And so when I started working out, I was 18 years old. It was at the downtown YMCA, and it was for my first kind of real full-time job. I was working at a call center, and the what's it called? One of the benefits was a gym membership at the downtown YMCA. And so the deal was, if you set up for the gym membership, and it'll be free, but you have to work out at least I think 2 or 3 times a month, which is like super low. Like, what do you think of it to get any sort of result? Unless you're doing things on a regular basis of like health and exercise, of like, oh, I walk my dog regularly, I pay attention to what I eat, and this and that. Twice a month is like so little, right? So I think the rule is 2 or 3 times a month, and it'll keep it valid. And me at the time, I'm still kind of cheap, but like at the time, being like cheap and like, oh, it's free, so I'm like, I'm gonna take advantage of it. It's free, and so I signed up for the membership. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna use it, right? Because at the time, I still knew I wanted to lose weight, right? Because for those of you who don't know me, I was overweight for most of my life growing up, right? So from like up until I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, I was like overweight, right? So elementary, junior high, high school, after high school, and so I was always overweight, right? For as long as I can remember, for the most part, right? And then so I always knew I wanted to lose weight and to get into shape. You know, my guys growing up were like, my role models and my idols were like Hulk Hogan, number 1, number 2 was probably Arnold, and 3 was probably Stallone. Right, those would be my top 3 guys, right? I'm just like jack dudes I wanted to be like, and then Shawn Michaels, right? Like, he's the Heartbreak Kid, right? Shawn Michaels in WWE was just like the heartbreak kid. There's nothing much more you could say about that, right? Like the girls wanted him, the guys wanted to be like him, right? So that was my guy in the mid to late '90s, and then the early '90s, late '80s, it was Hogan, right? So and then sprinkle in a bit of Arnold, sprinkle in a bit of Stallone, and then so when I set up for this gym membership, and it was free, so I decided to go, and I go into the downtown YMCA, and it's in Winnipeg here, and it's a huge building, right? If you guys have never been, it's a huge building, super old building. It's attached to Portage Place Mall, and I get there, and it's huge, right? And it's new, and it's an environment I'm not used to, and so naturally I am intimidated, right? So I don't know what to do there. I've never really worked out before, right? They had like a track. They had like a basketball courts and stuff like that. They had on the main floor of the gym. They had like a bunch of treadmills, ellipticals, some of the machine, like more of the machine stuff, like for resistance training or for weightlifting. And then they had like a lighter set of dumbbells. So the lighter set of dumbbells were like fives up until maybe 30s, right? So that was, I guess technically they would. I mean, it wasn't labeled, but like it was kind of the lighter, almost like women's section, right? Like a little offensive, I guess, when you think about it now, but that was kind of it, right? And then on the second floor was where like the big dudes were, right? So that was where, at least the people who kind of knew what they were doing to a degree, they were, right? So on the second floor, where there was like the barbells and dumbbells and the cable machines, and there was like the squat racks and things like that. And that I felt was like super intimidating because I really didn't know what I was doing, and I was like, when you're new to a gym, and you've never really worked out before, it can be an intimidating place. And I was one of those guys who was intimidated, right? I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't want to look stupid. We're always in our head, we're like, oh, I don't want to look dumb, I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to look like I'm super out of shape or whatever. But like, side note, if you are new to a gym, and if you're not, you're not sure what to do, as long as you're not interrupting someone, like most of the, like, say the big guys or whoever, like the in shape people, they don't mind showing you how to use the stuff, to be honest, right? Like, I've never been like a huge like guy or the jack guy in the gym, but whenever people have asked me, I've always been cool with it, right? And then when it came to people I've asked who have been like the big jack guys and girls, they've always been friendly with their time, and like have always been like very caring and helpful when it came to like how to use the stuff, right? And so, because most of them, they care, right? They care about like fitness and health and stuff like that. And then so when people ask them, like, it's kind of like boosts their ego a bit, right? It's like, oh, they're asking me for help. Like, I must be like pretty jacked. So I would say, like, feel free to ask someone as long as they're not like mid set on the bench press and the barbell falls on their chest and stuff. So don't bother them. But aside from that, if they're kind of like roaming and stuff, feel free to ask them. It'll be like, ooh, I'm an expert. So yeah, that little side note, they always want to help. So I didn't know what I was doing, and then so when I started there at the YMCA, it was legit. I started just shooting hoops because I didn't know what to do, right? And I knew how to play basketball. I didn't know how to work out. And then so I started just like, for the first maybe week or two, just like I'd go there, I'd get a basketball and I'd shoot around for like maybe 20, 30 minutes, and I'd go home. I was like, all right, cool, I worked out. It wasn't even playing like basketball, it was just taking some shots and stuff. And then I'd go home. And then in the upcoming weeks, I would start to be like, all right, okay, I did that. Now I'm gonna go on the bike, on the stationary bike. I'm gonna go bike for like 15, 20 minutes, and then I would start doing that. And then after that, I was like, well, maybe I can like do a little bit of jogging. So I'd kind of go on the treadmill. I'd walk and I'd jog and I'd walk and I'd jog. I'd kind of do intervals like that. And that was there. Then I tried the elliptical, and that was okay. So it was all cardio stuff, right? It was all cardio. And then so for like so when I kind of start going into like the treadmills and the ellipticals and things like that, then after I was like, well, I'm gonna start using some of the machines. And so the machines I used was basically like the chest press, right? Because I had these man boobs, right? Still kind of do, right? They still bother me. And then probably like the pull down, and then like the seated row, right? Like those are kind of like straightforward. Like you can't really mess these up all that much. And so yeah, I did those, and then I would do some cardio. But fast forward several months later, maybe even a year later, right? Like, I looked the same, right? And it was embarrassing, right? Because I knew I wanted to lose weight. I didn't know how, right? I really did not know how to lose weight. I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't know. I thought I was eating healthy, right? Because like it's very confusing, because if you see in commercials at the time, this was like the early 2000s, like there's Subway, right? Like, oh, the guy Was it Jared? Like he ate Subway and lost weight. I'm like, oh, he ate Subway. Then there's like these other like Nutrisystem, and there's like Atkins, and then there's like these other like home DVDs. There's Taibo and stuff like that. I'm like, do I do that? Do I do that? So I really didn't know. It was very confusing, and I got used to the working out on the main floor. Then I'm like, okay, I built up a little bit of confidence, and then so I started to go up onto the second floor where like the free weights were, right, the heavier dumbbells, and like the dumbbells there went from like the 10s to all the way to like the hundreds, or I think they had 105s or 110s, I think, right? So, but I thought like at that point I'm like, oh, I would not touch those, right? And then the people who knew, I felt like knew what they were doing, they were up there on the second floor. And so I started like bench pressing and this and that, and then like all in all I started to build a little bit more muscle, but I still had I was still a thickie, right? I was still like I was still a thick boy. I still had the fat on top of my muscle, so I looked like I had a little bit of muscle underneath my fat though, and so I was just like, well, I'm kind of bigger. Even though I was stronger, I was still just bigger, right? I was just a little bit of a bigger version because I had muscle underneath my fat, and so that happened for several years. So that was like 2003 up until early 2007. And then 2007 came, and that's when I was like 21. And when, long story short, a little bit of the extra motivation came from a girl who I was into, and she was not into me. And she said that like, oh, I'm not really looking for anything. Although I think the next week or a couple days later, she had updated her either Friendster or Facebook. Facebook was super new at the time, and she had updated her status to like in a relationship, and I was like, oh, I get it, and I was like, I knew, right? I figured it was because of my looks, and also my looks, my self-esteem was so wrapped up in how I looked. I don't want to say she judged me on my looks, but I'll say it was my self-esteem that was wrapped up in my looks and how I looked. I felt like I was unworthy, I guess, of certain things, whether it be success when it came to a career or with women or whatever else it is. So that was a driver enough to want to change. And then so I remember when I heard that news or something, I drove home it was probably from work or something, driving home from work in the afternoon, and stopped by a gas station and went inside to go pay. And then I saw a magazine. It was a Men's Health, and it was Nelly on the cover, right? Nelly was like, it was 2000, and so like Nelly was like, he was out, but then like he kind of took a little bit of a break, then he came back and he was looking all jacked. So like, remember that song like Party People with Fergie he had, and then like Stepped on My J's, and then a little bit before that I think like Grills came out, right? Great song by the way. And then but on the cover of the Men's Health he was like jacked though, right? Like his arms looked huge and all that stuff, and he's all like oily and stuff like that. And so I was like, dang, but I'm still super cheap, and I didn't buy the like $7 magazine. So I go home, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go try to find it online. And so I tried to look it up online, and the menshealth.com site, there was like an ad for like this LL Cool J workout book, and I was like, yo, he's LL, right? They don't call him Ladies Love Cool James for nothing. And then I figured, if there's anyone I'd want to look like in like the music or celebrity realm, like it's LL Cool J, right? Like, yes, there's guys like Usher who are like, ripped and all that with the abs, but LL was like, he was brolic, right? Like I remember, was it Rhapsody Basement, where I forget what song came out, and Big Tigga was like, yo, LL is looking brolic, right? And I was like, all right, he's brolic, okay, cool. And so I was like, man, if I could be like that, like that's what I'd want to be like. And then so I was like, should I get it? And so I got the book. I think it was through Amazon. I don't know. It was like a super long time ago, obviously. The book came into the mail at my parents' house where I lived maybe a week or two later, right? And so and it was about $24. So shout out to LL Cool J and Dave Scooter Honig, who's still doing the thing with training. So I got the book, I went through it, and I was like, and to myself, an internal conversation I had with myself was, what's the worst that would happen if I tried? Right? Because I knew deep down, like I never really tried to lose weight, or I never really tried to accomplish anything. Right? Because at that time, the most thing I accomplished was like graduating from high school. But like, it's high school. People should graduate high school, right? Like at the bare minimum, right? Not everyone does, but you could, and it took me making a commitment to myself, like what's the worst that could happen if I tried? And then so when I tried, and it was like I was like, hey, I'm just gonna try for the first time in my life, and it was just blinders on. I followed that book. I followed the workouts pretty close to a T as much as I possibly could. I followed the book when it came to the nutritional stuff like that. I think I remember the first week of that book, they're just like, clear out your pantry, clear out your fridge of all the garbage and stuff. And I was like, my mom's gonna kill me if I throw out that food, right? Because like, I lived at home, and so I was like, yeah, I can't throw out the food because my mom will kill me, but I will do my own grocery shopping. So my own grocery shopping was relatively inexpensive because it was just straight up chicken breast and like romaine or some vegetables and yogurt and then a couple things here or there, and that was it. I did that like every week, and all in all, so that I was around. I didn't weigh myself, which I do regret not weighing myself to start off with because I was so self-conscious. Like just like most overweight people, like you don't like to weigh yourself. The scale is not your friend. I can see in the mirror I'm overweight. People tell me I'm overweight, so I don't want to necessarily look into a mirror as well. And then so I didn't weigh myself. I regret it. But I know I stepped on the scale here and there, and so I know I was around like 220-ish, right, give or take. And after that first month of like training, I remember the first week it was like doing circuits, and I was like, I've never did a circuit before, and it was like 7 or 8 exercises in a row, then doing some cardio afterwards. And I did that, and it was hard, man. It was super tough. Like I've never worked out like that before. I've never really tried. I've never paid attention to my rest periods. I've never paid attention to like how heavy the load or the weight should feel. And so when I kind of dialed those things in, and I did that first kind of circuit in that first couple weeks, and it was rough, man. It was super rough. And then like after that first month, I think I was down to just over, I think I was like maybe 210 or 200 or right around there. So it was about almost 20 pounds down in my first month, and that was me just changing over what I ate and then working out, kind of taking it more like seriously, more intentionally. And then I was surprised. I was like, this was kind of fast, and I've been really struggling to do this for like years. And I was like, why didn't I do this before? And the second thing I thought, I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen if I just keep going, if I just keep trying? So I did. And then the funny thing was that nothing necessarily different happened from 220 up until, like it wasn't like, oh, now I have to do this, now I gotta do this different. It was literally the same principles I did in that first month that carried me through up until I basically lost like 70, 80 pounds. And it was the same process. It was the same, like, religiously making my lunches the day before I went to bed, having my gym clothes ready before I went to bed, so that way it makes the morning easier. I got to bed at a decent time, so at the time I worked like 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., so I'd always try to be in bed by at least by 10 or something, so I'd get about 6-ish hours of sleep. And I was consistent. Like my workouts were, not every workout was a grand slam home run, but I showed up at the gym. I didn't miss days. And just that consistency overall of getting to bed, not missing workouts, eating the right things, and going to bed on a decent time, like as basic as that sounds, right? Sometimes easier said than done, but that is what took me from 220 to like 147, right? So that I will definitely say that. And I went from like so then after that, building up a little bit of confidence, I started going, working. I started off like with machines first because I didn't want to mess things up, I guess. So I used machines, then I started to go into more of the free weights, like dumbbells, barbells, things like that. And the workouts, now that I had an idea, I knew where to start from, right? So I know what weight was tough for like chest presses and bench pressing and stuff like that, and then I was able to kind of build up on there, right? So in my early 20s, a lot of it was like the machine stuff, and then more like a bodybuilding type of split, right? It was like chest days, leg days, arm days, sometimes a little bit of full body, but mainly bodybuilder type of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know like in recent years, bodybuilders have kind of been like the butt of jokes of like, oh, they're not functional, but like a bodybuilder's function is to be as jacked as possible on the stage, right? And like that's what they do. So so it was more like a bodybuilding type of workout with a little bit of athletic stuff in between. And but mainly it was like barbells, dumbbells, cable machines, and then like cardio and stuff, right? So cardio was mainly like the treadmills and all that. Like I liked running. I still do like running, but like it just kills my joints now. I can't do it all that often. And it was a lot of cardio in that sense. And so I started going from like 3 days a week to 4 to 5 and then to 6. And then when I had like time, or if I was bored, I'd do 7, right? Like it kind of depended on how I felt, I guess. And then so that was what working out was like in my 20s, and it was purely, at least in my early to mid 20s, and it was purely like aesthetic. I just wanted to lose weight and look good, and I did, right? And goal was accomplished. And side note with that girl that I wanted to like who had kind of turned me down and was in another relationship. I saw her going to start working out in 2007, and I saw her at a wedding in like 2011. 2011, I think, or 2012. No, 2010 or 2011. I forget when. And then I saw her at a wedding, and that was the first time I saw her, and I believe the first time she saw me since losing weight. And when I think she last saw me, I was like definitely over 200 pounds. Maybe probably 210, maybe 220. And when she saw me, I was around 150 because I'd always hover around 147, 150. And I saw her at a wedding, and at weddings, people are dressed up nice. And then at this wedding, me and my buddy Ramil, he was walking in front of me because we're gonna go to the bar and grab a couple of drinks, and we're both thick single guys, right? So we're going. He's in front of me, and I saw her there, and when I saw her there, like early, I knew she was there, right? Let's be honest, I knew she was there. And then seeing her, I was like, oh damn, like. It kind of messed me up internally, like I was nervous. I was a little bit nervous, right? Not that I was, like, she's with her boyfriend at the time. I wasn't going to, like, talk to her or hit on her or anything like that, but it was, like, I was nervous, you know what I mean? And then when I was walking, I kind of looked in her direction, because I knew where she was sitting, obviously. And then I see her kind of look at me. She kind of looked over her shoulder, and then she was, like kind of gave me the double look, and I was like, oh! Fuck yeah. I was like, I was so pumped. I was like, at that very moment, like 3-4 years later, I was like, it was worth it. It was worth every drop of sweat, every time I packed my lunch, every time I went to the gym and I did not want to go to the gym. It was worth it. Like, as I know it sounds very petty, but call me petty wop, right? I was super petty. I was like, hell yeah. In that instance, it all mattered. I cared how I looked, and it worked, right? Like, I don't care that I didn't end up dating her or whatever. I cared that, like, she saw it, and she kind of took that double look, and even though it didn't mean anything at that moment, like, it meant something to me. It meant like I did something right? Even though it's as petty as it is, right? Petty wop, that's what I am in that moment. And, God damn, where was I? So that was in my early 20s. It was all about, like, my looks, right? Like, I cared about it, and it definitely boosted my confidence overall, right? Like, I accomplished something that I've never accomplished before, right? This was something that has plagued me my whole life, and I was able to overcome it. And after that, the cool part was, yes, I had lost weight, and I had kind of got skinny, and I had a little bit of muscle and stuff. The coolest thing about losing weight was that I had this confidence I never had, right? Even though, when that general question, when people ask, like, hey, how you doing? An automatic response, I'm good, how are you? It was so automatic. And then during that time when I had lost the weight, and I was kind of like, reflecting, and I was like, no, I actually feel really good. I feel good about myself. And then I was like, I don't even know if I've ever felt good about myself. It was like that. I had this new confidence. Not like I was cocky or anything, but I had this confidence now. Like, I felt like because I could do this, I can do other things, right? And that kind of makes sense now when, like, if you see people who get, like, lose weight or get jacked and they become bodybuilders, they do other things, right? Sometimes they'll go into other business ventures, other careers, or other whatever, because now they have a new standard, right? So I believe that kind of makes sense now, that they've accomplished one thing physically, and the whole physical turnaround, that can come a lot faster than, like, say, business or school, right? So if you want to change something, change, like, your health, right? So when I had accomplished that, I felt like, well, if I could do this, I could go back to school. I could do something, right? Because and at the time, I didn't know people could be like, I knew there were personal trainers out there, but I didn't know how they became personal trainers. And then so I figured out, like, I can learn about the body and be a trainer and go to school, right? Like, cause they had the courses and stuff at University of Winnipeg, so I did it. And if I never lost the weight or got in shape, I would totally be in a different career field, right? There's a good chance, like 99% sure, I would not be doing this podcast. There's a 99% chance I would not be on YouTube if it wasn't for me changing my health, right? So I'm a big advocate for it, and I believe everyone should, like, get healthier to a certain degree, and so if they have certain goals, like, go after them, right? So as long as they're healthy goals, and you find ways that you can achieve them. So in my early 20s, yes, all, like, 95% about my looks, 5% about performance, because I still wanted to be able to run far. I got into running. I liked running, right? And also, if we played sports, I wanted to be, like, pretty decent at sports too, right? Because I cared about sports. And then kind of fast forward a little bit, in my later 20s, I started getting into powerlifting, because just focusing on looks with bodybuilding and just, like, focusing on aesthetics, it's like, it's a race to, like, infinity, right? Like, there's always a way to, like, you're always going to judge yourself against other people. Like, if it's The Rock or the other guy at the gym who's, like, super jacked too, it's like a race to the bottom or something in a way. And so it's like never ending. And then comparing yourself to others, like that's also not fun to do too after a while. And then so I got into powerlifting because powerlifting was more of like, now I'm just trying to get stronger. Can I add 2 more pounds onto my squat? Can I add 5 more pounds onto my bench press? Can I do this instead of 1 rep? Can I do this for 2 reps? Right? And if you're not familiar with powerlifting, it's like the straight up like barbell squat, barbell bench press, and barbell deadlift. And it was really fun. It was fun because there's something else to focus on aside from my looks, you know. And then when I got into powerlifting, there's a whole powerlifting community that comes along with it, right? So a bunch of my friends I've made along the way are powerlifters or were powerlifters. And then, and it wasn't until powerlifting is when I really understood, even though I went to school, like, you know, kinesiology, and then even though I had lost a bunch of weight doing kind of bodybuilding type of stuff, it wasn't until powerlifting is when I really started to understand how the body works performance-wise. Like how the rest sets work, different type of energy systems work, but I won't bore you on those details. But that's really kind of how I understood how the body work was through powerlifting, and so that was fun, getting stronger. So then, yeah, with powerlifting, it's straight up like, it's all it's a competitive event. It's a sport, right? So it's like, it's, you know, you have to use a barbell. So my exercises are mainly with barbells, and then obviously for other stuff, I would still add in like the dumbbells. And it was almost like in the powerlifting world, like cardio was like condemned. Like, you don't do cardio because you're gonna lose your strength. And I was like, so I stopped doing cardio kind of for the most part. I would push the sled and do like kettlebell complexes and things like that. And after that, but at that point, I'm like in my late 20s and my early 30s. And then lifestyle is kind of changing along with it, right? Like I'm dating my wife. We're getting engaged. Actually, we get married, and so life is a little bit different. And at this point, you know, I own a business. I started up the gym, Social Brick Fitness in Winnipeg, and so life is changing. I'm not just like straight up working like a 9-to-5 type of job anymore. I have different responsibilities than I did when I was in my 20s. So that's a big thing to consider as well. If like you are, you know, in the same boat as me, if you're in your 30s and life is different from your 20s, right? Like, so super easily off the bat, in my 20s, I was a single guy, right? No wife, no girlfriend, no kids. Dating here and there after I lost the weight and stuff, but no kids and so no business, right? So I was just kind of working. 30s now, like I'm, you know, like, and I'm fortunate. I'm very blessed to have, you know, a wife, 2 kids, about to be 3, and then you know, I have the podcast, I have YouTube, I have you know, I still have still kind of working, kind of going back to the gym now actually, and I actually work a full-time job from home now. So life is a little bit stacked in a good way, right? So there's a lot more going on. And then so when I get into powerlifting is when I kind of stop doing cardio, right? And terrible. And then you know, life changes, and then so as in my early 30s, like I have a son, right? And I have my first kid. You know, me and my wife get married, and about 1.5 years after we get married, we have a son, and it was great. Like, it was awesome. Like, if there are other fathers out there, or you know, it's the best, man. When having a kid is like a blessing. It's unreal. It's like a love you've never realized you could even feel, right? And so like it was awesome, man, having my son. And but after that, it was a quick lesson that like, hey, life changes, and you know, like, whether, you know, and it was for the better that I had my son and I felt this awesome love, but also at that point too, like, things had to change. Like, I didn't have the time to work out as much, right, or to devote to that, not because like, oh, my son needs me or my wife needs me, but it was like the choice I had made that like, well, I'm not going to put that much time into this other part of my life because my son needs me. And also I wanted to have that relationship with my son, and also I wanted to have that good relationship with my wife too. And so not to put blame on them, but it was mainly like me making the decisions that like, spend more time with them, not to be at the gym as much, and that was fine. And then, but as soon as that happened, like, you know, you have a newborn. For those of you who get this, you know, you have a newborn, and then like, you don't, you know, kids get up in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? Like, and so like sometimes my sleep would be kind of messed up at times, you know, from the newborn and all that and stuff. And then like, it was, you know, life had changed. You know, life comes at you fast, right? And so you just gotta be ready. And after that, you know, we moved from our apartment into our home where we are now, and then we have a daughter, right? Like, I got 2 kids now, and you know, like, that's, you know, more time. And now that I'm in my 30s and I'm about to have my third kid, my wife is pregnant. She's due like in a couple months. That like having some form of routine down now is like super like it has to be there, right? Like and now that like I'm 35 and it's been like 5 years of me just kind of like dicking around with my health, that hey man, like I got to be intentional about this again, and I can't just like let it slide. And because like I don't have that convenience of like time, right? I can't just when you're a single guy, you can nap whenever you want to nap. You know what I mean? That's cool. You can go do whatever you want. If you feel like working out, go ahead. But when you have a wife and kids there, like there are other people in your life that you need to consider when you're making these decisions. And then so now I have to make it a priority that like I don't miss my workouts too. I eat the right thing, because very easily now when I was at home, I didn't buy junk food, right? Like, and my parents weren't really junk food eaters either, but now like my wife has the restraint where she can buy chocolate and take a bite and she'll put it in the cupboard. I can't, right? If I know the chocolate's there, I'm like, I'm gonna wait till everyone sleeps because I'm gonna eat it, right? I'm like that, right? Or if my kids have the leftover, like they don't finish their macaroni and cheese or hot dogs or chicken fingers, I'm gonna eat it, right? So I have to make those things of like, well, I don't eat those things. And part of it too being now that like having a few more responsibilities on my plate, I stay up later, right? And I'm trying to go to bed earlier, and like there's a whole thing with like sleep and like your hormones. And if you just get to bed at a good time and sleep like 7-8 hours a day, you will lose more weight, right? Your hormones will function properly. Long story short, your hormones leptin and ghrelin, they get affected directly if you're not sleeping. So if you're not sleeping, like you basically will feel those hormones control like if you feel full and if you feel hungry. So basically, you might feel hungry, then you might not feel full, so you might just keep eating. So if you are sleep deprived and you make it to that kitchen at like 12:30 at night, you might leave an hour later after eating a bunch of stuff you didn't feel like eating anyways. So that's what hormones do, right? And also, if you slept 5 hours compared to 8, that's 3 more hours. You can get really hungry in 3 hours. And then so if you just went to bed, you can't eat and sleep at the same time. You would skip out a meal basically, right? So go to bed at a decent time, right? And so which is what I was not doing for a long time. So I'm gonna try to make it a point to just sleep earlier and to get better sleep, really. And then now working on my 30s, big difference, right? Like it's the lifestyle. My lifestyle is different in a great way, right? And then so now I can't take working out for granted, right? And things have to be intentional. Where before, when I was in my 20s, I could work out. My minimum workout would be like about an hour, right? If I didn't want to be there that long, it was an hour. But if I was there and did everything I needed or wanted to do, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours the most, right? Which is like crazy when you think about it, because like going to the gym takes like 20-30 minutes to get there, then 20-30 minutes back. That's like 3 hours gone. As a family man, I choose not to do that. Like, that's crazy, I feel. So I'm lucky I have, like, just my home gym now in my basement. I got some kettlebells and some dumbbells. So now that I have a dad in my 30s, my workouts are about 40 minutes. And that's good for me, man. 45 minutes is perfect. It's bang on. I have enough energy to get that in. I have enough energy to be, like, purposeful and to have some intent behind those exercises and the workouts. And all of it now, like, because I don't have a ton of space in my home gym in the basement. I have a bunch of kettlebells, and I got sandbags. And I have, like, these dip bars I made. I have, like, a chin-up bar I made from, like, pipes from Home Depot. I got a TRX, I got gymnastic rings, and I made a plyo box, too. So that's, like, and I got a bunch of jump ropes. That's my gym now. And I like it. I like having a home gym. I like not being interrupted at a gym when I work out. I like having just this singular focus, right? When I feel like when there's less stuff to work with, then you can be creative, right? Imagine like you having a gym full of stuff, right? And then you're like, what do I do first? That's decision fatigue. That's a lot of people go through that. It's decision fatigue. That's like Steve Jobs, right? When he's they kind of make fun of him because he would just always wear black turtleneck and jeans, right? But that's less decision fatigue. If he knew he was just gonna wear a black shirt and blue jeans, that decision's done. If he knew he's gonna eat the same thing every day, that decision's done, right? He can focus on other things. If I know I just have like kettlebells and sandbags here, I know what I'm gonna do. But if I have a barbell, a squat rack, a leg press, if I have different types of barbells, if I have like the safety squat bar, if I have the cambered bar, if I have a set of dumbbells, if I have the chest press machine, like that's just stuff to use for a chest, right? If I have deadlift platform, trap bar, straight bar, all those things, there might be a little bit of decision fatigue, right? So I actually like having a few less items, to be honest, right? And now, because I don't have the barbells here, like this is what I got to use, and I'm totally cool with that. So it has let my creativity kind of roam a little bit more. So the frequency, when I was in my 20s, like I said, started at 3 times a week, then 4, then 5, then up to 6, sometimes up to 7 if I wanted to, right? Now that I'm in my 30s, frequency is I will aim for 6, but if I can get 4 to 5, I'm good, to be honest, right? And as long as I'm not eating like a moron, right, you could say, then I'm good, right? Because 6 is rare that it happens with all the stuff that we have going on, because the weekends, or say Sundays when we're both off usually, is when we do family stuff, right? Then we have time to go to the beach with the kids, the park with the kids, go biking, go hang out, go get ice cream and stuff. Like, you know, like my kids can't just wait for me to be finished working out so we can go somewhere. And they didn't sign up for that, you know, like, and so I owe it to them and my wife to be able to have a good time with them, right? So the frequency was a lot more then, but now I will have my aims for that. So I'll definitely try not to miss workouts. And so now it's more so me making it a priority, like I said, to either wake up really early or stay up late, or if I could fit it somewhere in the middle of the day, I will. But all in all, to not miss those workouts. So frequency is a little bit different, but as long as I make the high importance of exercising and working out, things are fine, right? Intensity, right? Intensity, was, I guess, still the same. Intensity is going to be very important, like depending what you're doing. And then so in my early 20s, a lot of the bodybuilding type of stuff, and so remember the barbells, dumbbells, and stuff like that. Now the intensity, because if you don't have a bunch of little weights, like, you know, like plates you could add onto a barbell, and you have kettlebells or sandbags like me, weight selection is going to be a little bit different. So that's why rep ranges will have to change a little bit. So things will have to be, like, if you have like a 35-pound kettlebell and you're doing overhead presses, that might be like semi-challenging, but if you're doing squats with it, it's not that bad, because like squats, you have your legs are going to be stronger than your arms are going to be. So then you might pump out 20 or 30 reps with a kettlebell squat with their 35-pounder, and then you might end up pumping out only 10 reps for the single handle red press, which is going to be normal, right? So you might have to kind of get creative with your rep ranges and how you organize those things. Right, so intensity, kind of the same in a way, but kind of different, right? Because now that I have to do slightly different things, right? And then also intensity too, like I have like the strongman sandbags. I love them now, right? Like they were so rough at first because they were so different. I've never done anything like that. But the strongman sandbags, they're kind of just balls of sand in a bag, and then so lifting it was like super rough. So you do these bear hug carries and try to do squats with them and stuff, and like it's rough. It's super rough, but I do feel like it is. I know this word gets thrown around the fitness industry quite a bit, like functional. Like that I feel is super functional, like picking up another human being. Side story. And I'm gonna have this on my YouTube. Like, side story was that my father-in-law, he's an older guy. He's like 73. He took a fall, right? And it sucks because I was right there, right? Like, I wish I could have like been there in time to catch him. But we were outside. I was cutting the grass at his house, and he was outside watching me. And then he took a couple steps because he was gonna tell me something. But then he's not in the greatest health, and so like I think he tripped a little bit over like a rock on the driveway, and then just slowly you just see 1, 2, 3, and he's kind of like he slow timber forward, and it sucked to see. Like it just happened super fast enough that he couldn't get his arm out. I'm kind of glad he didn't get his arm out, because he probably could have broke his hand or his arm, right? Because that's how a lot of people break their arms, is if they stick their arm out to catch themselves, and then just like the elbow breaks. Right, so I'm kind of glad there was no breaks, but like I think he sprained his wrist, hand and knuckles were bleeding. He kind of smacked his face a bit on the ground, on the driveway, so his like just cheek was bruised up and cut. He had like cuts on his knees and on his feet and stuff. So I was like, oh shit. And so on the ground, he's a grown man. He's not a huge guy, but at least about 150, 60 pounds. Those sandbag carries off the ground. And it's just sand, right? It's not like a barbell where you have like a handle to lift, right? So like these sandbags, I feel like have helped me carry him up onto a chair, right? Because he fell, and I had to readjust him so he can kind of sit up against the car, catch his breath, and kind of me and my wife and my mother-in-law kind of cleaned him up a bit. And then when he was ready, right? Like he was just like, how am I gonna get up? How am I gonna get up? And then my wife was like, Pop, Lester will carry you. And so like I got behind him, put my kind of underhooks under his arms, and then straight from the bottom up, and my hips are near the ground. I lift him up right onto this chair. And he's like, thank you, and I was legit at that moment. I'm like, if I didn't do these sandbag carries, like that should be reason enough that everybody should be doing sandbag carries. You don't know who you're gonna have to like pick up, right? Not just a metaphorical thing to pick someone up emotionally, but hey man, you might have to carry someone one day. And I hope you're going to be strong enough that you can do that. Whether it be your child, your partner, brother, sister, a friend, or a stranger who you're helping out. Like, being strong is always going to be an asset. So I definitely wish that everybody gets strong. So the strongman sandbags, I love them now. So that's the intensity. The type of exercises are different now, right? I straight up, like, it's a lot of squatting, pressing, pull-ups with my chin-up bar, carries with the sandbags, dips, right? Because like, you gotta get creative here. And I have the TRX where you can do a whole bunch of different things on the TRX. A lot of chest presses, rear foot elevated split squats I like, and kind of mixing that stuff in. So the typing of exercise is different. In my 20s, very bodybuilding style, barbell bench press, incline dumbbell barbell bench press, barbell squats, leg presses, the single joint like leg extensions, bicep curls, things like that. I haven't really did a bicep workout since like 2012, to be honest. It's been a while. It's been almost 10 years since I really did an arm workout. It's kind of pathetic. That's why my arms are so like whack. But yeah, so the type of working out is different now. And also, like, back in the day in my 20s, I used to do a lot of cardio, about 2-3 times a week. Not a ton, but I liked it, right? So I would run. I had access to a treadmill, and I would run outside. Now I don't have a treadmill. I wouldn't mind having one, to be honest, because even on your worst day, like you're tired, you're exhausted, you're sore, you could go for a walk, right? So you could do some cardio walking on a treadmill, or go walk outside, depending on what time of the year it is, where you live, all that stuff. But my cardio now is mainly like jumping rope. So I'll do like a jump rope workout. So it might be like a 2-minute. So it might be like intervals of 30 seconds. So 30 seconds jumping rope, 30-second kettlebell swings, 30-second jump rope, 30-second kettlebell swing. So it's like 2 minutes. I'll take a 1-minute rest and I'll repeat. So that 2-minute round is, I'll consider it like almost like boxing in a way. So I'll do like 10 2-minute rounds, or my cardio is basically going to be like Tabata sets. So like if you go 20 seconds super hard, 10 seconds of rest. So I might do like 20 seconds of jumping rope and then rest 10 seconds, then a switch to a kettlebell swing. I might do that. Or my cardio is going to be like kettlebell complexes, which I'm a fan of, which are like a love-hate relationship. So with one kettlebell, right, with one kind of lighter one, I'll do like 5 single hand overhead presses, then I'll go into 5 kettlebell squats, like on kind of offset on one side, and then 5 reverse lunges, and then 5 single arm swings, then switch sides. So I'll try to do that 3 times on each side without stopping. And at that point, like the muscles are working, the heart rate's pounding, and like I'm sweating a ton, I'm out of breath, right? So those are kind of cool different ways to do cardio because you keep your muscle on, right, with burning some fat, right? Cardio on a treadmill and stuff like that and elliptical is great. Although if that's your only way you're losing weight, it's okay, but then you just become a smaller version of yourself. Because if you don't have the muscle built up and you're kind of like soft, you're just going to be a smaller, soft person. But when, like, say, if you think of a bodybuilder, when they do that cardio, they already have that muscle there. So now that cardio just literally burns the fat, and they keep that muscle there, or they have some of that muscle, right? You will lose a little bit of muscle if you're just doing straight up cardio all the time. But at least the bodybuilders, they have the muscle on them, so then they just get more shredded. So make the strength training a priority, and then the cardio is like, if it was a meal, strength training is your meat and potatoes, your cardio is the dessert. You're not doing that as much, and that's not really the main focus of the meal. Also, for the cardio, I also like every minute on the minutes. So that I'll pick like maybe 5 exercises, and I'll do them kind of in a circuit. So say I'll do like, the first exercise might be a kettlebell squat and press. Second exercise might be a kettlebell swing. Third exercise might be like, say a chin up or something like that. And then fourth exercise might be like burpees or box jumps. And then exercise number 5 might be like sandbag, like throw it over my shoulder like a suplex, right? Or like over the shoulder, they call it. So I'll pick 5 exercises, and like say if it's 10 reps of each thing, right? At the start of the minute, say if you have a second hand on a clock, right? The second hand hits a 12, you do your set, that might take you 15, 20 seconds. Let's say 15 seconds, you have 45 seconds to catch your breath to do the next exercise. And so then that might be like, say you might start with a squat, then a press, then a whatever. So top of the minute, you do your set, rest the remainder of the minute. And if it's tough enough, challenging enough, like it will get really tough, and like your heart rate's gonna be up and all that. So it's pretty cool. So those are the types of workouts back then to compare to now. And now let's see, the time. Yeah, so back, yeah, like I said earlier, like time, I had a lot more time on my hands. Now it's like 45 minutes, and I'm good. Even if I have to now, 20 to 30 minutes if I don't have time. As long as I kind of stay consistent, like those things matter to me now. And also, like nutrition-wise, now I have a heavier emphasis on protein. So even though, yes, protein was still a big thing back in the day, now I kind of track my food. And when I track my food and I track the scale, things work out well. When I don't track my food or I don't step on the scale regularly, it's like I know I'm screwing up, and so I don't want to see it. So I'm better off when I keep track of these things. But mainly, if I can keep my protein at about 35 to 40%, or even higher if I can sometimes, of my calories of the day, then I'm usually pretty good, right? So, and after that, my carbs and my fats will kind of vary depending on how I feel, or depending on what's going on. So say if I am on a 2,000 calorie diet, 40% of 2,000 about 800 calories worth of protein. That's 40%, right? That's going to be like coming from protein, right? So that's going to be like, whether it be like chicken or protein shakes or whatever else it is, like that makes a big difference of like kind of keeping the muscle on, right? And that's which will be able to help you keep the body fat off, basically. So the timing, yeah, that did change, and now, and also another big thing is like the enjoyment factor, right? The enjoyment of like, man, you gotta like what you do when it comes to working out. So that I'm never gonna slam somebody if they're into CrossFit or if they just like Peloton or cycling classes or whatever kind of thing that they're into, like beach body or something like that. Like, cool, go for it, right? If you're about your health, be about your health, right? Take care of that, and be a better version of yourself. And whether it's like 15 minutes you got or an hour you got, go for it, right? So what works for me or whatever may not work for everybody else, but that's kind of the differences now from like training in my 20s to my 30s, right? My 20s was a lot of like bodybuilding, aesthetic stuff, barbells, dumbbells. Now it's straight up like in my basement, man. Like, and I like it. I like not having to work out that long. I like not having to travel anywhere. I like a little bit of the privacy, I guess, that I get, and even just a bit more of the creativity that I can have here with like the kettlebells and the sandbags. Because like with less stuff, you can kind of get a little bit more creative. In my 20s, I used to run a lot more. Right, I was a slimmer guy, and I got to get back into shape again. And so the cardio was good then, but now I'm like I've got these old man joints, and so I can't really run like I used to. Right. So now cardio in different ways. I'll probably start getting into running again. I ran twice outside so far this year, which ties the amount of running I went last year, but last year was on a treadmill. So I'll do a little bit more cardio. And even now, like, just different injuries and stuff that start to pop up from like years of powerlifting and bodybuilding and bad left hooks in boxing, like all those things, they all matter, right? So, and enjoyment right now, like, you pick something you enjoy, right? And so the frequency has changed too. So now focusing on being consistent and focusing on like my nutrition, not eating so crazy because I can't just make up with bad nutrition with working out anymore. I don't have that luxury, so I definitely do have to eat well. And yeah, I guess that's what I got to say about that, man. So I think that might be it for now. But all in all, for the zaddies out there, if you are like 30 and up, right, I would definitely just say focus on the strength, right? It's always going to be an asset. Focus on getting your protein in, right? Whether you are a vegan or vegetarian, like it's always going to be important to get your protein in. And, when you work out, do something you enjoy, right? Whether it be like CrossFit or like cycling classes or whatever, just do it as long as you're doing that. And you don't know who's going to be watching you, right? Your kids are going to think you're like the man if they see you taking care of yourself, and that's going to be a normal thing going forward for them too, that like, oh, dad just works out. That's what dad does. Dad's like the strongest, fastest guy, and that's like that's a badge of honor when your kids think like you're the man, right? I think that's like the coolest thing. So I think that's it for me for today, guys. So once again, shout out to 27 Degrees Apparel. Awesome company. Love them. Love the shirts that they make. They make the 2 shirts that I wear all the time, and like the ZBP Project is now on YouTube. So like, subscribe, hit the notification button. I'll post these podcasts up on there as well. And all in all, man, that's it. I wish you guys the best. Peace, power, prosperity to you. A lot of cool things for us zaddies to come, man. So we're the dictionary, man. So we gotta represent. All right, peace.